What's up? Thank you for joining me for another episode of Adaptive Men. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit something that I have found has been very helpful in my life in terms of dealing with anxiety around stretching my comfort zone. When you start to recognize the patterns, and I'm going to refer to this as the cycle, when you realize that you may have some subconscious fears around certain things, it doesn't really seem like it makes sense that you should have fears around them. But again, this is all just crazy subconscious things going on in your back of your mind, the back of your psyche. I had it all written down on the whiteboard behind me, but the microphone that I was using decided to break. So I'm just going to speak it into the existence on the microphone here. Please bear with me. The cycle, as I'm going to refer to it here, is basically the cycle between what I'm going to define as familiar success and familiar failure, and how there have been times in my life where I start to ping pong between the two of them. It's like when I start to find myself finding more success than I'm used to financially, physically, making progress at the gym, making progress with dating and girlfriends, my career is taking off, whatever it may be, that things are going well and it feels so foreign because it's not familiar success. Familiar success for me might be making a certain amount of money, but then all of a sudden I start getting clients who want to pay me even more than I'm used to, and it just literally feels uncomfortable. Because beyond familiar success is uncertainty, and below familiar failure is uncertainty. You'd rather the familiar success you know rather than the familiar success you don't know. You'd rather the familiar failure you know rather than the unfamiliar failures you don't know. So think of it this way. It's like unfamiliar success might be, say, for example, you're having trouble attracting a woman. You want to start getting better at talking to women, engaging with them in public. You want to start getting phone numbers, going on dates, but you're just not good at it. And you've convinced yourself that there are enough failures, enough familiar failures, that no, I'm just the kind of guy that doesn't get girls like that to talk to me. Attractive women don't talk to me. They don't give me the numbers. So a familiar success might be maybe jumping on a dating app and getting a like or getting a match. That's familiar because after a while, maybe if you have to swipe 1, 2, 300 times and you found a couple matches, that's a small hit of familiar success because at least I can get someone on the app, not in real life, but I get somebody on the apps. But then if you decide to take that chance to go approach that woman in public who you didn't really think would even give you a chance to give you her number, and suddenly she's like, actually, yeah, you know what? I kind of do like you. Here's my number. Call me sometime. What that's not familiar success. That's uncertain success. That's a outside of my familiar success zone. And very often when we find ourselves succeeding in ways that we don't feel is innate to who we are, we'll find ways to sabotage ourselves back down to familiar failure. I won't call her. I won't follow up. I'll overthink the date and then decide to back out. I'll just run away. I'll screw something up. I'll talk too much. Whatever it may be, something happens where you end up self-sabotaging it because you're going back down into your comfortable cycle. And then you'll justify that it wasn't going to work out. And then you'll get a familiar failure in the form of it not working out because arguably maybe you didn't do what you really needed to make it work out. You didn't actually follow up on the call. You didn't actually put some meaningful effort into the date because you were trying to subconsciously achieve a familiar failure because it's easier than taking on an unfamiliar success. And then in that regard, we might find ourselves failing even more than usual, where we're really, really out of the loop in terms of maybe something like exercise and health. You go to the doctor and the doctor says, your numbers don't look great. You got to work on it. You're like, okay, I know. A couple of months later, you go to the doctor, numbers still don't look great. You got to work on it. Okay, that's a familiar failure. My doctor's upset with me. My doctor's upset with me. And then one day you go to the doctor and said, if you don't change this, you're going to die in 6 months, or you're going to get type 2 diabetes and maybe it's not reversible, or there's a high chance you're going to get cancer. That's an unfamiliar failure. That's a new level, a new depth of failure you're not familiar with. So all of a sudden you start chasing back up to familiar success again by saying, oh, no, we're not going that far down. I'm going to start hitting the gym. I'm going to start exercising. I'm going to start taking care of myself now. Back to familiar success to get me out of the uncertainty below familiar failure because it's new territory. Jump back up to familiar success. I start working out. I start eating clean. I start taking care of myself. Start really taking care of myself. Start changing my habits. Now we're going back into unfamiliar success again. So even further than we were before. Can't be having that. You know what? I'm just going to skip the gym today. I'll just go on Monday. One cheeseburger is not going to kill me. Pizza's not that bad, is it? It's okay. And then you start I missed the gym, but it's it's just one of those days. I'm that kind of person. Round and round and round you go between familiar success, familiar failure, familiar success, familiar failure. When you start to step into that uncomfortable zone beyond familiar success and familiar failure, you realize you're stepping into uncertainty. And that cycle between familiar success, familiar failure, familiar success, familiar failure, essentially is your comfort zone. Those boundaries, those guardrails between the two is your comfort zone. And in effect, this becomes your identity, which is crazy if you think about it. That basically means that when you walk around telling yourself, I'm not a person that works out regularly. Why? Because there's a boundary of familiar success and familiar failure as to how fit I should be. Or I'm not the kind of guy that girls talk to. Or I'm not the guy who gets promotion. I'm not the guy who has any luck. I'm not the guy who has, this is my identity. I'm just not lucky with girls. I work out to a point, but then an injury always just seems to conveniently happen when I push myself the same way every single time. When I know I shouldn't be doing that exercise, but I keep doing it, I keep getting stronger, do that exercise I shouldn't do with too much weight, I go a little too far, there's a familiar failure, hurt myself again. Oh, getting out of shape. Doctor's yelling at me. The doctor's really yelling at me. Let's go back to working out again. This becomes your identity. And when you start to stretch into uncertainty with your identity, your body will kick back naturally. Your mind will kick back because it's looking at that recording in the back of your head of your identity, of who you are. And it's saying you're now in your discomfort zone. You're now stretching out of your normal range. Are you sure you want to do this? Because even if this wasn't a great loop to be in, it was functional enough that we didn't die. And when you step into uncertainty, into your own discomfort zone, stretching yourself and challenging your own identity, your nervous system doesn't like it. Anxiety pops up, reasons to skip out on what you're doing, reasons as to why you don't deserve this, reasons as to why, this isn't going to work out. Something bad's going to happen. And this becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy where something bad is going to happen. Now you're priming your mind to look for the bad thing to happen to justify how you feel because you're challenging your own identity. And so when it comes to this kind of thing, what you have to realize is that if you decide, I don't want to be this person anymore. I don't want to be the person. I don't want to be the guy who has trouble talking to women, who can't keep consistent at the gym, who sucks with discipline, who is not making as much money as I feel like he should be making. But I have to start challenging it. What you have to realize is that you're going to be moving your nervous system into a new zone, and it's going to take time to acclimate to that, but to also not go too far ahead of you, too far out over your own skis. And so in this case, I'm going to refer to 3 different zones, like 1, 2, and 3. The first zone is your comfort zone. The second zone above that is your discomfort zone. And the third zone above that is delusional confidence zone. Comfort zone is quite literally what it sounds like. It's everything you do throughout the day, throughout your life that you're familiar. It's where you bounce between familiar successes and familiar failures. It's where you say, I'm not a disciplined person, therefore I'm going to screw up going to the gym. And then when I start to get too fat, then I'm going to start going to the gym again to lose weight. But when I start getting too healthy, I'm going to stop going to the gym again. And the whole thing just cycles around and around and around. Discomfort zone is when you start to challenge the narrative. It's when you start to say, you know what? I'm going to go try to talk to this girl. And it's going to feel anxious. I'm going to feel awkward. Anxious. It's going to feel anxious. It's going to give me anxiety. It's going to make me feel awkward. It's going to reveal my boundaries. My identity is going to show up when I start pushing on the edges of my comfort zone. And as a result of challenging the narrative, stepping into discomfort, going for the raise, going to the gym more often, signing up for a class or doing something you've never done before, trying a new activity, whatever it may be, you're going to get a rise in your sympathetic nervous system, which is basically your flight or flight. Doesn't mean you're going to go into a full-blown panic, but it does mean you're going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to feel anxious. You're going to feel nervous. This is what your body's evolved to do after millions of years of evolution, is to try to keep you in that zone of just optimal functionality. We don't care about how successful you'll be 5, 10, 20 years from now if you keep working out. All I care about is you're sticking within your lane right now, because when you push out of that zone, then you're in your discomfort zone. This is new territory. I don't like uncertainty. Your body hates uncertainty. Your body hates the discomfort zone. But when you can comfortably sit there and say, I'm going to be anxious, I'm going to be nervous, I'm going to have a lot of thoughts racing, I'm going to have a lot of justifications, reasons of why I shouldn't do this, whatever it may be, that's when you start to acclimate to it. as though you were like acclimating to cold water. You're jumping in the pool and, oh my God, it's super cold. Holy crap. I'm freezing my butt off. I'm shivering. I'm shaking. After a while, your body goes, okay, it's fine. You're good. You can survive this. You're not going to die. It's okay. This is kind of what you're balancing between is your sympathetic and your parasympathetic. So in the case of approaching a woman, you might say like, well, I'm really, really bad with talking to women. I get really nervous. I get sweaty. My palms get sweaty. I get sweaty. My thoughts start racing. I overthink it. Okay. Maybe that's delusional confidence for you right now. Maybe that's too much. Maybe that is past your discomfort zone into way too much that you can handle right now, which is not a slight against anything wrong with you. It's just that this is now where the current guardrail is for your nervous system. This is as far as you can go right now. So you might pull that back a little bit and say, instead of going to want to approach a woman to ask for her phone number, I'm just going to go up and ask her for the time. I'm going to go up to her and ask her, what book is she reading if she's reading a book? We're in a cafe or a coffee shop. I'm going to ask her, like, what drink are you having? I'm not really sure what to get today. What would you recommend? Just to get comfortable with engaging with that. Or if you're asking for promotion, get more comfortable with role playing with a friend of yours. If you're going for a job, just apply for the job and just see what happens. Or just take the time to open up the window for the application online and just put the words in, don't even send it. Just figure out where your discomfort zone without going so far out into this third zone, which I'm referring to as delusional confidence, because it's too far for you right now. But it's okay to take a few steps back and say, can I find that sweet spot between those two zones to start challenging the narrative in a way that doesn't overwhelm my nervous system, doesn't overwhelm my sympathetic nervous system, doesn't put me into an over the way shutdown. Because when you sit at this delusional confidence for too long, if it's too much for you, this is where you get nervous system shutdown or collapse. This is where you get things like dissociation, where you're there, but you're not really there. Sorry, I smacked the microphone. You're there, but you're not really there. You're unconscious in a way. Like you can talk, you know you're present, but you're not paying attention to what people are saying to you. Have you ever seen people like 1,000-yard stare? It's similar to that. It's a sense of your brain is basically saying like, I'm turning off now because you're overwhelming what I'm comfortable with doing because you went too far. Instead of saying, you know what, okay, I don't like the idea that you're talking to women right now because we're not very good at talking to women, but I'll give it a shot and I'll kind of send out some alarm signals. But if you can stay relaxed well enough, oh, hey, Kat, if you can stay relaxed well enough throughout this, you can acclimate to it eventually and slowly. So recognizing that challenging the narrative in this context means figuring out your own identity. And so in this case, what we do to figure out your own identity and then how to challenge it. Step number one, you got to find the guardrails. Figure out where your boundaries currently lie. What does that mean? Go out and do the things that you think you're uncomfortable with and try certain things, and then just keep track of the patterns that happen. I tried to talk to a woman today and I almost asked her for her phone number, but then I just had a reason I walked away and I couldn't do it. Okay, your current guardrail is phone numbers are too much, but asking for what book she's reading or what kind of coffee she's drinking, or just asking for the time if she has a watch on, that's not too bad. It's like that's near the guardrail. Cool. We're going to start doing a little bit more of that consistently until you get comfortable with that, and then we'll take it a next step up of, hey, what's your name? Oh, are you from around here? Oh, blah, blah, blah. Conversation. You know what? Do you mind if I get your number? Tracking the patterns is a way of keeping track of your own subconscious behaviors. Oh my God, really? Is keeping track of your own subconscious behaviors when they pop up in these circumstances. So it might be, I have a habit, like you say, I have a pattern of I go to the gym 3 days in a row and then I quit. I go to the gym. I try to go to the gym 5 days a week and it was too much for me and I quit. I go to the gym 4 days a week and then it was a little bit too much and I couldn't really say, I go to the gym 3 days and I'm not too bad. 2 days in a row is easy though. Okay. Your current guardrail is somewhere between 2 and 3 days a week. And depending on what you're training for, what you're doing, we want to figure out, okay, if your guardrail is between 2 and 3 days a week, track that and say, cool, next week I'm going to do 3 days and I'm just going to stay there. And for a couple of weeks until I just get comfortable with it, until I get just used to it. Another way of doing this is to use others as a reflection of your own behavior. Recognize what are you doing based on what they can tell you about you. If you have people you trust in your life, if you have men you trust in your life, people you trust, family members you trust, can you ask them, is there something I do in these situations that you can see that I don't notice? Do I get awkward? Do I get socially weird? Have I talked about doing this a number of times and I just don't end up doing it? Have I build a grandiose sense of what I want to do and not accomplish, not follow through. Am I bad at following through? Am I bad with this? Am I bad with social? Whatever it may be, take that feedback and input from people, just jot it down, keep track of it. And even if it takes some time for your nervous system to hear the truth and then relax and calm down into it and be okay with it, take it. Just start with that and then build on that. Just like you need that feedback either from doing it yourself or from asking people around you, what do you notice that I do that I can't see myself doing? And then finally, when you get to this point that you decide, you know what, I figured out that I'm kind of bad at talking to women to get their phone numbers. But I figured out the guardrail is I can ask for the time, I can ask for a name. I have a hard time pushing past that point. Cool. Then that's where your guardrails. So then challenging the narrative, stepping into your discomfort zone, stretching that familiar and uncertainty, that familiar success and failure range a little wider means next time I say one I'm interested in talking to, I'm going to get to a point where I force myself in a healthy way to ask for her phone number and be okay with the outcome. Because it's not about accomplishing the phone number acquisition, it's about practicing the behavior until it becomes normalized, until it gets caught into your new cycle. And then over time, that familiar success and familiar failure starts to get wider and wider and wider. And the uncertainty around it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And you just get more and more confident as time goes on because you're okay with stepping into these difficult areas, stepping into this stuff. You're stepping into your discomfort without going so far as to go into delusional confidence. You're sitting in your discomfort zone. You're finding your, what we refer to as your edge. You're staying there till the water becomes acclimated, feels good. And then you're going a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper, gradually. This is exactly the same way that little kids, when they're growing up, you have to have them try a little bit out of their comfort zone, go back to safety, a little bit out of their comfort zone, further, back to safety, a little bit out of their comfort zone, back to safety, oscillating between comfort zone and discomfort zone in a healthy way. Because if you go too far, shut down. But if you go just high enough, discomfort, stay there as long as you can, recover. Discomfort, stay there as long as you can, recover. Rinse and repeat. You start challenging your narrative, you start changing your identity. You become who you want to be instead of who you were convinced you were supposed to be. If you found this informative, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe, send it to a friend, leave me a comment, let me know what you think, any information you'd like me to elaborate more on, if this resonated with you. If it didn't resonate with you, let me know. I'd love to hear more from you. Until next time, be well.